Properties of water: ice floats, and it's also a universal solvent. So water is really cool. When it turns into ice, it floats. Water solidify, it turns into ice. When it becomes a solid, it expands. On the left hand side of the molecule, you see when water is a liquid, it's very tightly compact together. But when it turns into ice, it expands and it becomes less dense. It becomes very light, so it floats. So why is this important? Well, when ice is less dense and it floats, it forms a top layer and it insulates the water on the bottom. And it's like a blanket. It insulates, it covers the top. It keeps it warm on the bottom. This is important for the fish. For us, it's still very cold though, but for the fish, it's warm night on a winter night, and ice doesn't sink. Now, if ice does sink, and that's bad, because what happened is when ice sink, it goes down to the bottom ocean, and then another layer form, and then ice sink again, another layer, and then eventually the whole ocean freezes up, or the whole pond freezes up. And when that happens, all the fish gonna die. And when all the fish gonna die, then humans gonna die along with it too. Water is also a universal solvent. Universal solvent meaning water is polar. So because it's polar, polar can dissolve other polar stuff like salt in this case. Water is a universal solvent. So on the left hand side, you have salt, NaCl, and then on the right hand side, NaCl is in water and it gets broken up. Universal solvent, the word solvent means it dissolves other stuff. It is an agent that dissolves other stuff. What does it dissolve? It dissolves, in this case, solute. So NaCl, salt, is the solute. It's the thing that's getting broke up. It's the thing that's getting dissolved. So how can you tell the difference between solvent and solute? Well, what you can do is notice how here in the word solvent, there's the word solve, and then the word dissolve, there's also the word solve. So that's how you remember. Solvent is something that does the dissolving, and then solute is the thing that's getting dissolved. So why do things need to be broken up into a smaller part? Why does, for example, salt needs to be, or sugar needs to be broken up in smaller parts? Well, remember, cells are very tiny. So when we broke these things up into smaller parts, these things are then able to be transported into the cell. Otherwise, stuff wouldn't get into the cell. Non-polar stuff. Okay, we know that water is polar, therefore it cannot dissolve non-polar stuff like oil. So it just separates into two different layers, it doesn't dissolve. But however, non-polar can dissolve non-polar. So why is this important? Well, for example, your hair is very oily. The reason is the oil in your hair is there for your protection. But as time goes by, as day goes by, the oil in your hair starts to accumulate. While the oil in your hair, when it accumulates, it starts to gather dirt. So it kind of get dirty and then greasy. So you have to remove it. You have to wash it. So you need to get rid of it. Well, what you do is you wash your hair. Now when you wash your hair, water can only remove the dirt. It cannot remove the oil. So how do you remove the oil? Remember, non-polar can dissolve non-polar. We use shampoo. Shampoo happens to be non-polar. So therefore, shampoo helps remove the oil. And that's how it works. So now you know when people have greasy hair,